They thought he was just a quiet repairman, a disposable husband, the guy who paid the bills and stayed out of the way. But when they tried to erase him, when his wife signed his death warrant and kissed another man before the ashes even cooled, they didn't realize one thing. He survived, and now, he's not fixing broken pipes anymore. He's dismantling lives, one calculated move at a time. Let's begin. My name is Grant Whitaker, and for 17 years, I thought I understood loyalty. I fixed what was broken in both machines and people. I worked the heat lines in Detroit's underground systems, the ones nobody thinks about until something explodes. But the thing that finally did explode wasn't a pipe. It was my life. It started with an envelope. Monday morning, just after I kissed my daughter on the forehead and poured the last of the coffee, I spotted it in the pile of grocery ads. A thick, glossy envelope, the kind real estate brokers use. Inside were legal documents. Clean, crisp, official, and signed. My wife's signature, in blue ink, as always, repeated over 5 pages. The house, my house, was being transferred to Evan Pike Holdings, LLC. That name sent ice through my spine. Evan Pike was my brother-in-law, a smirking, hair-gel property developer who thought drywall was beneath him. He and my wife had been brainstorming ideas for over a year now, supposedly helping us optimize our taxes. Turns out, I was the one being optimized. Out of everything I'd built. I confronted my wife, Delilah, that night. She didn't look up from her phone. "It's just paperwork," she said. "Temporary. Evan said we can save thousands if we move the deed under his LLC for a bit." I asked her how long a bit was. She didn't answer. She just rolled over in bed and mumbled something about an early meeting the next morning. But Delilah didn't work in finance. She worked in hospital administration. She didn't need to sign 5 notarized forms to save on taxes. She was hiding something. The next evening, I found out what. She came home late again. Said the board meeting ran long. I hugged her as usual. And that's when I smelled it, cologne. Not my cheap Old Spice. Something expensive. Rich, musky. Masculine. "You smell like you ran through Macy's," I said. She laughed, a short, cold laugh, and brushed past me toward the shower. That was the moment. Not when she signed away the house. Not when she started working late. It was when she stopped hiding the lies. 2 days later, I was back at the Midtown Furnace Conversion Project. Once a factory, now a playground for yuppie investors. I was inspecting a high-pressure regulator when my coworker, Dennis Carr, approached. "Grant, you look like you've seen a ghost." "I feel like one." Dennis had 30 years of scars to his name. Steam burns, collapsed ribs, chemical scalds. He knew how to spot a man unraveling. "You having wife trouble?" he asked bluntly. I didn't answer. "You know what my second ex told me?" he continued. "The man who doesn't ask questions gets replaced. The man who does gets eliminated." Then he winked. "So be careful, friend." Minutes later, the boiler blew. I don't remember the sound. Just the force, like the hand of God slamming me into the wall. When I woke up in the ER, Dennis was there. So was Delilah. She brought flowers. She stayed 10 minutes. She checked her phone 4 times. She never once asked how the explosion happened. But Dennis did more than ask. He investigated. And what he found made my blood go cold. "Someone rigged it," Dennis said the next morning, sitting beside my hospital bed. "Pressure valve didn't fail. It was tampered with." He paused. "They knew you'd be the one checking that system. They counted on your routine. This wasn't an accident, Grant. Someone wanted you dead." I closed my eyes and pictured her face. Her hands on the insurance forms I found last month. The way her voice never trembled when she lied. "Delilah, when I got home, nothing felt the same. The walls were too clean. Her smile was too bright. My favorite meal sat on the table, untouched. And her phone kept lighting up with texts from someone named Brett. I went to the garage to think. And there, I found it, hidden in a fake electrical outlet near my workbench. A micro camera, recording everything. Every move. Every schedule. Every repair. That was it. That was the moment the Omi died. From that night forward, I became something else. Not angry. Not even sad. I became quiet. Focused. I built a hideaway in the shell of the old Whitaker steel plant. Condemned, forgotten, but still standing. I set up monitors. Gear. Surveillance. I used every cent of my savings to build a private eyes toolkit. I followed her patterns. Her late-night visits to a condo on Fairview Avenue. Her lipstick-stained wine glasses in someone else's sink. The man? Dr. Brett Langston, 42, Chief Medical Officer at Oakland Central. Divorced. Drives a Porsche. Treats janitors like ghosts. And he kissed my wife every Thursday at exactly 9:10 p.m. But I wasn't ready to strike. Not yet. First, I needed proof. Evidence. Patterns. And something to burn their lives to ash. Then came the mail. One letter from a law firm. One packet. Divorce papers. Backdated. Strategic. She claimed we'd been separated for 6 months. Long enough to cut me off from every joint asset. She wanted full custody of our daughter, Ivy, and half of everything I owned. But that wasn't the worst part. 3 days after my accident, Delilah had changed the beneficiary on my life insurance from Ivy to herself. She hadn't just betrayed me. She planned my funeral. They say revenge is best served cold, but I wasn't interested in cold. I wanted controlled heat, like the kind that builds slowly in sealed pipes until they burst. So while Delilah kissed Brett Langston goodnight and sipped cocktails at rooftop lounges, I was underground, watching, planning, and waiting. I used to believe in confrontation, in talking things through, in being the bigger man. That was before my wife tried to have me murdered and smiled through it. So I didn't confront. I observed. I tracked her movements. Monday through Wednesday, it was board meetings that ended in Brett's arms. Thursdays were wine and condo nights. Fridays, she returned home with smeared lipstick and lies. She didn't even bother deleting her texts anymore. Her phone would flash on the kitchen counter, unlocked, while she took showers. Brett, did he buy the fake tears this time? Delilah, Grant hasn't had a clue in years. Every word was a spark. I store them all. Meanwhile, I started assembling my weapons. Not bullets, not fists. Proof. Plans. Pressure. First, I contacted a friend from my old tech trade school. A guy named Levi Kroll, now a data security specialist who owed me a favor. He taught me how to spoof locations, encrypt communications, and scrub metadata from surveillance footage. You sure you're not building a murder plot? He joked. I'm building a future, I said. He didn't ask again. Then came the off-the-record interviews. I spoke to a former nurse who worked under Brett. He's a manipulator, she said. Ran off 2 interns. Shady billing practices, too. One time she stopped. Why do you want to know? No reason, I said, smiling. My next stop was Evan Pike, my brother-in-law, the man who now technically owned my home. I paid a private contractor to audit Evan's recent real estate flips. The findings? Unlicensed construction, forged permits, inflated repair bills to city housing commissions. 2 separate whistleblower complaints buried in silence. This man wasn't just shady. He was a house of cards begging for a match. I handed all the findings to an anonymous tip line at the Detroit State Audit Bureau. Then I added one more thing. A formal complaint from a concerned tenant about carbon monoxide leaks in one of Evan's units. Within 10 days, Evan's office was swarming with health inspectors and forensic auditors. That was the first fire. Delilah was too distracted to connect the dots. Evan's meltdown became another bad luck moment. But Brett was more careful. I needed something he couldn't recover from. So I waited until the hospital's annual gala, a black-tie fundraiser attended by local politicians, board members, and the press. Delilah was there, in a $1,000 black dress, clinging to Brett's arm like she belonged on his tax return. Brett was scheduled to give the keynote on ethics in medicine. Perfect. I hacked the AV system during setup. Nothing too fancy. Just swapped the HDMI source on the primary feed and injected my own slideshow. As Brett stepped up to the podium, I tapped a key on my tablet. The screen behind him flickered, then showed a full-screen image. Brett and Delilah. In bed. Laughing. Kissing. Undeniable. Whispers echoed across the hall. Then came the audio. I swear, these patients are walking insurance policies. Half of them don't need care, but we bill the hell out of them. I call it strategic suffering. Oh, and Delilah? She's worth every risk. Her husband's too dumb to even know what a boiler is. There were gasps. A board member stood up. Someone screamed, "Cut the feed." Too late. Every phone in the room was recording. And Brett Langston's career was ending in real time. By morning, his resignation was demanded. By noon, the medical fraud division was in contact. By evening, his name was trending for all the wrong reasons. Delilah sat at the kitchen table that night, shaking. Someone is trying to destroy us, she whispered. I stir my coffee calmly. You think it's random? Her eyes narrowed. This has to be about Evan. She had no idea the crosshairs were already on her. But my final trap? That one had to hurt the most. So I intercepted her next mail delivery, using a stolen key, courtesy of my friend Levi's locksmith contact. Inside, another life insurance policy change. Except this time, Delilah wasn't even subtle. She listed herself as primary, and Brett as contingent. My death would have made them both rich. That's when I knew. I didn't just want to ruin them. I wanted them to unravel together. And it was almost time. The final piece came from someone I never expected. My daughter, Ivy. Dad, she said one night. Can I ask you something? Anything. Are you and Mom okay? I froze. I hear her whispering on the phone, and Uncle Evan keeps asking me weird stuff. Like if you've ever talked about moving out. I nodded slowly. You're a smart kid. She handed me a crumpled receipt she found in the glove compartment of Delilah's car. It was from Lexfield Insurance Group. Date, 3 days after my accident. Description, policy update, beneficiary change. My hands trembled slightly. You okay, Dad? I looked at her and smiled gently. I am now. Because that's when I knew. They tried to write my ending, but I'd already started their prologue. I woke up at 5:02 a.m. the next morning. Same coffee mug, same truck keys, same uniform, but something inside me had changed. Not broken, not burned out. Refined, hardened, focused. Delilah thought she was done with me. Brett thought he'd already won. Evan thought no one would ever notice the paperwork tricks and shady deals. But none of them had learned what years in Detroit's boiler tunnels had taught me. Under pressure, even steel cracks. It began with Evan Pike. He was still strutting through the remains of his real estate empire, trying to hold it together with cheap smiles and forged signatures. His office had already been slapped with 2 citations from the State Construction Board, and city inspectors were tearing through his properties with clipboards like vultures. But I wasn't done. That Thursday, I paid a visit to one of Evan's apartment units wearing a fake building inspector's badge and carrying a clipboard full of citations. Ones Levi helped me design to match the city's format. I accidentally dropped copies in front of tenants waiting in the lobby. Within 48 hours, 2 of them had filed tenant complaints, and 1 posted on a local forum. Avoid Pike properties. My apartment smells like mold, and the heat goes out every week. By Friday, his phones were ringing off the hook, tenants demanding repairs, the city threatening fines, and his investors backing away like it was radioactive. Just like I planned. While Evan's empire crumbled, I turned back to Brett. The gala video was just a match. Now I needed the gasoline. Remember those billing records? The ones he bragged about manipulating? Well, with a little digital nudging from Levi, the hospital's compliance team received an anonymous flash drive, one containing altered patient charts that linked directly to Brett's login credentials. The best part? The file timestamps matched the exact hours Brett was with Delilah at his condo. He couldn't explain how he billed procedures while he was sipping wine shirtless. The board didn't need more convincing. They opened a fraud investigation. Brett was suspended pending review. Delilah's golden ticket had just gotten shredded. That night, she came home earlier than usual. Not crying. Not yet. Just tense. We need to talk, she said, pulling out a chair. I raised an eyebrow. About what? She tried to look sincere. Us. Everything. I know things haven't been right, but I think we can fix it. Her voice cracked just enough. She thought I'd bend. I didn't. You want to fix it? I asked. Tell me when you decided to kill me. Her face froze. Color drained. Her mouth opened, then shut. She looked like someone who just realized they were out of moves. I don't know what you're talking about, she whispered. You do, I said, standing slowly. You knew my schedule. You knew I always checked the regulator at the east corner. And someone tampered with it. She stood too, chair scraping the floor. You're losing it. I reached under the table and pulled out the tiny fake electrical outlet, the one that held the spy camera. I tossed it on the table. It clinked like a gavel. Her eyes widened. I know everything, I said quietly. You, Brett, Evan, the insurance, the house. She sat down hard. What happens now? She asked. Now she was crying. I slid a thick folder across the table. The restraining order, the property claim reversal, the fraud reports. You're leaving tonight, I said. Take your purse, take your lies, and disappear. You have 2 hours. You can't throw me out, she whispered. I just did. She left that night with shaking hands and bloodshot eyes. And I stood at the window with Ivy, watching her mother drive off into the night. She's really gone? Ivy asked. Yes. Good. I didn't reply, but I knew it wasn't over yet. Not until Brett felt it too. 3 days after Delilah disappeared, I paid a quiet visit to Brett Langston. Not with fists, with facts. I stood in the hallway of his upscale condo building, dressed in work boots and a clean blue jacket. Maintenance uniform. No weapon. No threat. Just truth, and a digital recorder in my jacket pocket. He opened the door, hair disheveled, eyes sunken. He smelled like liquor and panic. You, he sneered. You've got a lot of. I just want to talk, I said calmly. We can do it here. Or inside. He looked me over. He wasn't scared of me yet. He would be. He stepped aside. I entered. The condo was modern. Sterile. Soulless. Like a hotel room that no one ever really lived in. I know everything, I said. The insurance fraud. The surveillance. The valve sabotage. Delilah's name on the contract. Your fingerprints on the leak. He scoffed. Try to play tough. You don't have proof. I pulled out the micro recorder. You're going to tell me how you planned it. Every detail. If not, I'll forward this recording and your hospital logs to the DA. That shook him. He moved toward the kitchen. Slow, careful, but I knew the signs. His eyes darted toward the knife block. He grabbed for it, but I was faster. 16 years working high-pressure systems teaches you how to move when a pipe's about to blow. I slammed his wrist against the granite. The knife clattered. Then I grabbed his collar and whispered in his ear. You think I'm weak because I fix broken things? You made the mistake of trying to break the wrong man. He froze. And then he confessed. Everything. How Delilah approached him first. How she suggested making the explosion look like faulty equipment. How Evan helped forge the deed transfer. How they planned to collect the payout and disappear together. How Brett installed the camera in my workshop and provided the specs for sabotaging the valve. 45 minutes. All recorded. All real. When it was done, Brett sat hunched on his designer couch, sweaty and shaking. What happens now, he asked. You leave, I said. Tonight. You vanish. You never call Delilah again. You never touch another hospital job in this state. Or I press send. He didn't speak, but the fear in his eyes said it all. Later that night, I uploaded Brett's confession to a secure drive and mailed a copy to Levi, just in case. Delilah had moved in with her cousin somewhere in Illinois, working part-time at a diner. Her social pages were wiped clean. Evan had filed for bankruptcy. His assets were frozen. 3 of his tenants were now suing him for endangerment. I wasn't just rebuilding my life. I was burying theirs. And the best part, no courts, no guns, no blood, just truth, strategy, and time. The same way fire creeps behind walls, silent, patient, unstoppable. 6 months later, the sunrise felt different. I stood on the porch of the house they tried to steal, coffee in hand, watching the light touch the rooftops of Detroit like forgiveness. The air was quiet now. No lies whispering through phone calls. No perfume on someone else's collar. No second guesses. Just peace, earned the hard way. Ivy was getting ready for school upstairs. Her laughter was real again. Her shoulders lighter. We didn't talk about Delilah much anymore. But one night, she'd said, "Thank you for not letting her fool us." I didn't answer then. Just hug her. Let her cry. Because that was the thing about betrayal. It didn't just hurt the betrayed. It poisoned everything it touched. But truth? Truth cleanses. Even if it scars. Delilah never came back. I heard rumors. One said she was waiting tables in Peoria. Another that she'd checked into a halfway house under a new name. I didn't care where she was. Only that she stayed gone. She called once. Left a message I never returned. You ruined me, she said. But I didn't. She did that herself. I just held up the mirror. Evan, he pled down to misdemeanor charges. Lost his license. Moved to Florida. Last I heard, he was doing drywall for a construction crew. Funny. The man who once owned 16 buildings now rented a room in a duplex with no hot water. As for Brett Langston, gone. He left the state the day after I visited. Levi later confirmed he'd been spotted working construction in Arizona. Alone. Gray-faced. Angry. His name erased from every hospital registry in Michigan. His LinkedIn Deleted. His legacy? Buried. And all it took was a man with burned arms and steady hands. I returned to my old job. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. There's something sacred about honest work. Something healing. Pipes don't lie. Pressure doesn't cheat. Steel doesn't whisper behind your back. It either holds, or it bursts. Dennis still met me at the diner most mornings. He never asked questions. Just raised his cup. "You sleep better now?" he asked one morning. I thought about it, then nodded. Most nights. He smiled. That's all a man needs. A roof, a purpose, and enough peace to rest. I wasn't the same man I used to be. Not softer, not colder, just reforged. The old me thought forgiveness was strength. Now I understood that real strength is knowing when to forgive and when to walk away with the truth in your hands. Before heading to the job site, I looked at the furnace in the basement. The same one Delilah had once tried to use to end me. I touched the pressure gauge. Solid, balanced, stable. Then I whispered to it, like an old friend. We both survived, didn't we? And the man they buried too soon, he was just getting started.